Hey, welcome back to the Espresso Outlet YouTube channel. Today it's more of a how-to maintenance type video. As you can tell that this DF64 Gen 2 has a red button. There wasn't that many that were sent with the red button. It was just sent out to just some of the very early influencers and some of the people just testing it as a prototype. But I did want to do a video today on how to swap out for a white button. So I just feel like that's going to make the grinder look a little bit better, but also in the future we may end up coming out with some different color buttons, and I know some people are going to ask on how to swap them out. So to get started, really just make sure that it's unplugged, because this could turn on, it could shock you. We are going to be working on the power portion of this today. Now yours may look a little bit different on the inside. I've noticed as they've updated iterations of grinders, they make little teeny tiny tweaks. So for the most part, it should look identical, but if yours looks a little bit different, it should be fairly intuitive to do. You really don't need to take very much of the grinder apart. I recommend taking the dosing cup off and setting it aside. Take your bellows off and set it aside. Now today I am going to take this funnel out just to give it a slightly more sturdy base when I flip it upside down. A few things that you're going to want to have on hand. I have a couple of these microfiber claws just to protect the grinder. We're going to do it upside down, then we're going to actually do the button swap on its side. I recommend probably having two of them. Phillips head screwdriver is really all that you need to get into the grinder itself. I recommend some needle nose pliers. It will make things easier. Some of these have these little self-locking tabs, and then a replacement button. Now there could be a few other things depending on how you want to do this. If you want to actually modify the wiring, you may need some new wire caps. The way that I'm doing it today, we're just going to put it on some different terminals. So to get started, I'm going to lay this out. We're going to flip our grinder upside down. And there's just two Phillips head screws on the bottom. It's really easy to get into. Next, this is kind of where I recommend having a second cloth. You're going to lift this off. And I like to take the screws out when I take the bottom of the grinder off, just so that they don't end up scratching the side of the grinder. A few things that I want to note: there is a little tab, kind of a bad angle with the camera, and a keyway in the front. When we put this back together, we want to make sure to put it back together the same way. So when we lay it on its side, this is where the second towel comes in handy, and just kind of rotate this to the back so that you can gain access to the button. So for today, it really doesn't matter which wire goes on which side. We just need to remove them. And on this version, they are not the locking style, but on our replacement button, it is a locking style connector. So if you're wanting to replace this without redoing the wires, you can pull back the heat shrink a little bit. And then there's some small little tabs that it's extremely hard to see. You're gonna have to push those tabs in order to pull this off. This is where some needle nose comes in handy. Next, we need to remove the old power button. It's usually just held in place with a plastic nut. You can screw it all the way down and push your button out. So to install the new button, we're going to remove that same plastic cap. Kind of make sure that the side's clean and just press it all the way into the hole. Followed by tightening that nut down. So we have our two wires right here, and we just simply need to replace them onto the terminals of the button, ensuring that they're all the way in place. Now, an alternate method, if you wanted to do a little bit more work, would be to try to reuse these little caps or replace them. I really don't recommend it unless for whatever reason you damage those two connectors. So today I just pulled the existing wire and connector off and just inserted them onto the new button. So it's really that easy. So I don't know, we're maybe 5 minutes into this video, and that's really all it took. The final reassembly, we're just going to flip it back upside down and put the screws back in. Okay, so carefully rotate this back forward, and we're going to pull it up like this. Now I wanted to point out there is a nub and a little keyway slot in the front. See if you can see that. And you'll want to align those two. Make sure that all your wires are down and out of the way. And then try to rotate it a little bit. It shouldn't rotate out of place. And that'll make sure that it is nice and centered before we put the screws back in. The last step would be just to insert the screws back down the holes and to tighten the Phillips head screws. Make sure not to over tighten these. It can be easy to do. You just need them nice and snug, and just make sure that the base isn't moving around on you. So it was really as easy as that. We changed from this red button over to the white button. I did go ahead and plug this in so that we could test it out. Before we test it out, let's put our dose cut back on, our anti-popcorn funnel device back on top, and our bellow and lid. So let's do the final test, hit the white button, and that's all it took. So we're maybe 10 minutes in this video. I'm not sure where it'll be after this edit. As you can see, it really doesn't take that many tools or much experience. I know a lot of people, they are a little bit afraid of electrical stuff, but it's just really as easy as pulling these two wires out of a switch, replacing the switch and putting a new switch in. So I hope this helps you out on future switch upgrades on this DF64 Gen 2. It's been a really cool grinder. Make sure to hit the like and subscribe if this video has helped you. We do have some cool stuff coming out with like DF83B, as well as some other cool stuff very soon. So I appreciate you watching. Have a great one.